which is that Jamie's directions for the blind guy made the blind guy drive like someone who was drunk. Like weaving all over the road and going really, really slow and super overcorrecting. It was, man, we're in the chase car. It's not really chasing because we're going like 3 miles an hour. Pissing ourselves laughing. And Jamie gets out at the end, he's like, well, I thought that went really well. That is an absolute high point. I'd say another one is we were in South Africa filming with great white sharks. And if you've ever seen the footage, Discovery shows it every year, of great white sharks leaping out of the water with seals in their jaws. There's only one place in the world they do it, and it's False Bay, South Africa, in Simonstown, south of Cape Town. And we went there to film, and a storm came in and kept us off the water for 3 days. Of the 7 that we were there. And this is a disaster from a production standpoint. It's costing us a fortune to be there. And we need to get a certain amount of footage to justify being there. So we thought, okay, well, we can't shoot on the water. Well, let's do some filler. What can we do? We could probably do Elephants Are Afraid of Mice. There's got to be an elephant nearby in Africa. So sure enough, there's this nature preserve, which was like the creepiest nature preserve. I grew up in New York in the 70s, and the Central Park Zoo was like the saddest zoo in the world back then. This nature preserve was worse. These elephants were just like, they were like, yeah, we're not happy. And we got this mouse from this crazy lady who had like all of these monkeys. She fed mice to the monkeys. We didn't film that, but she literally took a live mouse and had a monkey like eat the mouse right in front of us. It's totally, yeah. And you're like, thank you for the mice. So we go there and we think, how do we introduce a mouse to an elephant? Well, why don't we have the mouse appear in the middle of the path? How do we do that? Well, there's elephant dung all over the path. So we grabbed some elephant dung and we carved it out in kind of a hemisphere, and then we put the mouse underneath it. Very, very unhappy mouse. Tried to chew his way out. And we then attach him on a filament to the elephant poop, and the elephants walk on paths like cows do. They stay on the same path. So the elephant poop's walking down the path, and we pull aside the elephant poop, and the mouse is there, and the elephant goes, and then keeps on going. We're like, oh my God, we totally did not expect to get an actual result. We thought that our biggest problem would be, should we stop filming if the elephant steps on the mouse? We thought that would be the biggest problem. So we thought, okay, well maybe it's that they're not used to seeing elephant dung move by itself. So we pulled the mouse out of the equation. We put the elephant dung, we puppeted that, the elephant didn't care. Put the mouse back in the elephant dung, the second elephant comes by, same exact result. It is a testament to a reasonable methodology that it works, even despite the fact that we thought we were producing just a bit of fluff.
So being a Mythbuster, for you personally, what's the biggest perk?
The
most rewarding aspect.
The most rewarding aspect? There's a lot of them. On a day-to-day level, I got into special effects because I like doing something different every day. And I like solving problems. That's essentially what special effects really is, and that's what Mythbusters is. I like the challenge of solving different problems every single day. And in that, I get to choose the problems that I want to solve, which is how crazy great is that. So I love that part. We never set out to make a show that was in any way remotely educational or inspiring to kids. We don't think of children while we're making it, and I think they can tell, and they like that, because we're not talking down to them. I've gotten emails, Jamie and I get emails every other month from people who are like PhD graduates who say that they got into the field that they're in because of Mythbusters. That's crazy. It's incredibly humbling that us, two weirdos from San Francisco farting around in the shop have been able to have such a lasting tenure on television and have such a lasting effect that, the president calls us up and says, can you help us get kids interested in science? Meeting real scientists and being treated like peers is also, I have a high school diploma and like 6 months of acting school. So being treated like a peer from someone who appreciates our engineering prowess is wonderful. Especially because I want to talk to them about all the geeky stuff that they're doing. We filmed an episode about using stud finders to find something in your body. And we went to Zircon, the people that make the stud finder down in South San Francisco, and they had to pull me out of there because I was like geeking out with their entire engineering team for 2.5 hours. That kind of exposure we get to those folks is wonderful. I never would have imagined it. And then, lastly, our new season premiered last night on Discovery. It's a new time, 8 p.m. And James freaking Cameron was on our show. How insane is that? We had sent him a script, but we didn't know what kind of sport he would be. We didn't know if he'd be willing to put on an apron and pretend to be Jamie's shop assistant. And he was super, super gracious. It could not have been more fun to work with. So, there's pretty much nothing I don't like about the job except for Jamie.
And do you think not liking Jamie, working with someone that's sort of a polar opposite in terms of personality and whatnot, does that help or hinder?
No, it's the most important thing. It is the most important aspect of the whole enterprise is the fact that we disagree on almost everything. It brings a real and abiding integrity to what we do because someone's always checking it. On television and the media, when you have the kind of notoriety that we do, people want to create a bubble around you. And they want to tell you what you want to hear. And it can be terrible because you're not getting an honest answer, even from the network, when you're talking to them about stuff that you really want to know about. And so between him and me, there's no filter. There's just somebody who's always going, are you sure that's the right idea? Because I can think of 3 or 4 other ways to do it. Why don't we discuss all of those? And you were like, oh, I just want to do the thing I want to do. Please stop questioning everything. But the fact is that questioning, like 2 dogs on a bone, like I said, it brings a real integrity to the product. And we notice it in other partnerships. Penn and Teller are friends of ours. And their partnership is based on a very similar principle. They argue everything out. And that you can't call it a friendship. What Jamie and I have is not a friendship. We've never had dinner alone together. But what'd you say? Hot, okay. To each their own.
Would you say that Jamie and you are?
What's that?
Would you say at this moment right now that I've gotten closer Adam Savage?
No, in fact, actually, as partners, we keep tabs on each other's and how they're doing, and the relationship is quite an intimate one. Because we know each other better than most other people in the world. And although we drive each other nuts, the relationship is based on a very, very deep and abiding respect. The fact is that while we disagree about all the small things, we don't disagree about any of the big things. We've never disagreed about turning down large sums of money to bust myths for somebody's bullshit product. And we've never even hesitated for a second to do that. And I can only imagine how difficult it would be if that was a point of contention for us. Neither of us, television money is nice money, but it's not everything. And when we're done with this, we don't get residuals. All we have at the end of this whole trip is our integrity. And neither of us is willing to trade it away. And it's great to have someone who is with me on that. We almost laugh whenever we get together to have the big summits about what to do with X, Y, or Z, because we never really disagree about those things. So I would say that, the disagreements that we have is intrinsic and vital to the whole process, as much as on a day-to-day basis I can't stand it.
Now, you use a lot of explosives on the show. In fact, more than 12 tons have been used so far. Have you ever feared for your life?
Yes. There's a point at which we were doing this myth called 22,000 Foot Fall, where a French, I don't remember if it was a French, some dude falls out of the plane during World War II. He falls onto a French train station that's covered with a glass roof. At the very same moment he reaches the plane of the roof, an explosion happens inside the train station, and supposedly the shock wave hitting the roof cushions his fall, and he survives. So we got 500 pounds, we got the amount of explosives that would be in one of those heavy bombs. Well, we're 500 pounds of high explosives. These are what bomb tech would call cast boosters. They're each about the size of a slightly extra large soup can, and each weighs 5 pounds. So there's 100 of these. And they're all in the same spot. And all we need to do is make one go off, and all the others will join. And they're in this metal canister, which we've made our bomb. And the canister is 1/2-inch thick steel. And it was a heat wave in Northern California at the time. We did that whole shoot in 116 to 118 degrees Fahrenheit. You just give up after a while. You're like, my clothes are wet. It was so hot and so dry, the fire department required us to wrap filming by 10 a.m. every morning because the fire hazard was so high. Which meant that on the first day we got to work at 5 a.m. in order to set up. The second day we got to work at 4 a.m. to set up. And then the third day we got to work at 3 a.m. to set up. And by 9 a.m. it's 115 degrees. And this metal canister housing 500 pounds of high explosives is so hot, you absolutely could fry an egg on it. And you're thinking, there's explosives in here. And it's really hot. Isn't that a bad thing? I mean, I guess if it goes off, I'll never know. And the bomb squad tech up there, this great old guy, he's like, spits out some tobacco and goes, it's mil-spec, no problem. Later, we did cooking with C4, and we discovered that it's absolutely no problem. That stuff is made so stable, you could hit it with a blowtorch and you'd never get it to go off. The other time I kind of feared for my life was we were doing avalanche myths in Telluride. And I took a helicopter ride with the guys that start avalanches in Telluride. Now, in explosives, you can live fire explosives, which means you put a fuse in it and you light the fuse. And then it goes off a minute later. But almost nobody does that anymore because it's so freaking dangerous. The fuses are what they call smokeless fuses, so it's a piece of plastic you can't even tell that it's lit. I mean, you got to pull something pretty hard to light it, but you don't want to lose track of which one's lit. And almost everybody else in every industry that uses explosives, they electronically fire, so they run some non-L wire to it and they blow it up remotely. But these guys, there's no way to do that in the mountains of Telluride, so they put a duffel bag in the helicopter with 300 pounds of high explosives. And I was sitting on the duffel bag. And the guy saying, hand me a light 5-pounder and hand it to me. I light the 5-pounder, I hand it to him, he chucks it out the little window in the door of the helicopter. And we're flying over the most impossible scenery. It is Telluride, it's 11,000 feet elevation, and everything looks like a National Geographic show opening. It's like huge vistas of snow and mountains, and the helicopter pilots are having fun trying to make me sick by flying right up to the mountains and then diving down them. And the smell of diesel fuel and the smell of the fuses of the cast boosters is intense, and they take me on an especially long ride. I rode around with them for 90 minutes. Standard ride is like 40. And I didn't get sick. But at one point, he says, hand me a 10-pounder. So we taped 2 5-pounders together, and I go, that's not going to fit out the window. He goes, now, hold the door open. So I'm pushing the door open, and he's chucking it out, and then we're hovering there, and we watch it blow up, and we watch an avalanche start. Totally insane. Again, I figured, if this does go up, I'm never going to know. The next day was the only time I've ever lit up the sensors at an airport security crossing. They do this. They're like, oh, no. They look over like, oh, we're going to swab you. And they swabbed my shoes and went, beep. I said, have you been using explosives recently? And I said, yes. And they were like, okay. Lastly, I have one more story about fearing for my life. We were doing a story, we did 2 stories on this, underwater car, which I know is most people's worst phobia, being in a car as it goes underwater. So we did it in a swimming pool about 7 years ago, and we just dropped the car in the swimming pool while I was in it. I'm very competent in the water, I can hold my breath for 2 minutes, and you know, I got out, it wasn't much of a big deal. A lot of people found the episode very upsetting, very intense, because it is such a common phobia. But what